Welcome to the Connect with TrueSight webinar series. During today's webinar, you're able to ask questions of our panelists. The questions and answers, along with this webinar recording, will be published to the YouTube channel a week from today's date. Today's topic is TSSA Troubleshooting RSCD Agent, Connectivity Issues, and Shreekant Singh will take us through this content. Over to you, Shreekant.
Thank you, Greg, and hello, everyone. I'm Shreekant Singh, a Senior Technical Support Analyst. I have been with BMC Support Organization supporting TrueSight Server Automation, which was formerly known as BladeLogic Server Automation from past 3 years. In this webinar, we will be talking about the common RSCD agent connectivity issues, starting with what is RSCD agent and where it fits within the TrueSight Server Automation architecture. What is impersonation and privileged mapping? What is access control list? And what all configuration files are used? We will also see how to enable debug and read logs along with troubleshoot some common RSCD communication errors. I would like to start with what is RSCD. It stands for Remote System Call Daemon, also referred commonly as RSCD agent. This agent software must be installed on target which we wanted to manage via TSSA application server. Using RSCD agent on targets, we can execute a simple command to a complex script, perform patching, run compliance, audit, and various other jobs in order to manage the target server. RSCD agent is always on listening mode for the communication and respond to the call made via application server or NSH clients. It never initiates the communication by itself. From TSSA 2002, Smart Agent was introduced. However, it's outside the scope of current webinar. Here's the TSSA architecture, which consists of 3 layers: client, middle, and server. In client tier, it contains NSH, console, REST, SOAP, or BLs like alls. In middle tier, it has application server and database as a major component. RSCD agent belongs to server tier, which is installed on target machine to manage the server. Impersonation and privileged mapping for RSCD agent. In order to perform any task, RSCD agent needs to impersonate or gain privileges of a user which can perform that task on the target server. RSCD agent installed on Unix or Linux server will fully impersonate the user using the setuid command with the user account which is present in the ACL files. RSCD agent must run as root in order to allow mapping to specified user. However, in Windows targets, there are 2 ways how the RSCD agent does the user mapping. First one is UPM, User Privileged Mapping, and the other is Windows User Mapping, which is commonly known as Automation Principle. With UPM, the impersonation is done where the user mapped in ACL files. The user we are mapping for the UPM has to be local system administrator. We cannot use a domain account with UPM. When the connection is established, ACL files are read, and according to the user mapped, BladeLogic RSCD user will temporarily acquire that user group privileges. Whereas for the Windows user mapping or automation principle, communication is initiated along with the predefined username and password for the user we are going to map RSCD agent. It could be a local account to the target machine or domain account. Once user mapping is done, BladeLogic RSCD user will use the privileges of automation principle user in order to perform the action or tasks on the target machine. In a scenario when ACL files are configured to use local account and role on the TSSA is configured to use automation principle, then the automation principle will take the precedence over UPM. When connection is initiated to the RSCD agent on the target servers, the communication is processed and verified by various configuration files of RSCD agent. These files, collective configuration is referred as ACL or access control list. These configuration file controls who can connect, from where, and what permission it will have when the connection is established with the target server. Mainly 4 files are involved along with others. First is secure file. This file holds the network related configuration like on which port RSCD agent will be listening, what is the communication protocol, encryption, timeout, other network related values required to be used while communicating. Any update to this file should be done via secadmin utility to avoid any manual or typo error. Second important file is exports. This filters out who can connect to system via RSCD agent. Using the IP address or host name, we can limit the source connection who can connect to RSCD agent. This file is also used to perform initial user mapping. For example, we can specify application server can connect and will have initial mapping of read and write, and for other sources will try to connect, it will have only read-only permissions. The third file is users.local. This file used for control or grant permissions to specified roles and users connecting to RSCD agent. This file needs to be updated manually. This gets read before the user's file. If this file is empty, then the user's file is checked and the mapping is done. Any user mapping done on exports file is overridden by users.local. The fourth file is users. This also controls or grant permission to specified role and user connecting to RSCD agent. However, this is a dynamic file. This can be updated via ACL push job from TSSA application server. Any mapping done in users will override the initial mapping done in exports file. To identify and troubleshoot the cause of communication or connectivity issues with RSCD agent, we need to review the RSCD log files. The RSCD log files are controlled by a XML-based file named log4crc.txt. This file is present by default for Windows target will be under C Windows RSC directory, and for Unix or Linux targets it will be present under /etc/rsc directory. Using this file, we can control the type of logging we require for RSCD communication troubleshooting. For example, by default, the Info1 level of debugging is enabled for all the RSCD agents. If we need a granular level of communication messages, we can replace the Info1 with debug and restart the agent. Then RSCD agent will start writing the detailed messages in the RSCD log files. The actual RSCD log files will get written as rscd.log. It will be found under default location of RSCD home directory for Windows and inside RSCD home directory /logs for Unix or Linux targets. Only for Windows targets there is an additional log present It's called as RSCD svc.log, which logs the events of RSCD agent start and stop. This log is useful if we are troubleshooting agent crashing issues. There are two ways to enable debug for RSCD agent logging: using agentctl command or manually updating log4crc.txt file. When we enable the debug using agentctl command, it does not require RSCD agent restart, and RSCD agents start writing the events with debug statements. This command allows to toggle between info1 and debug. Info1 is default logging level for RSCD agent, and debug will give granular level of logging for the agent activities, which is helpful in troubleshooting. When change the logging level using agentctl command from info1 to debug, and agent is restarted, the logging level reverts to default info1 level of logging. Whereas when we use log4crc.txt file with manually updating the file and changing the logging level from info1 to debug, it will require RSCD agent restart to start logging the events in debug mode. While troubleshooting, selecting a method to enable the debug mode depends on the issue. If the issue is easily reproducible, we can use agentctl toggle, run the use case, and switch the logging statement back to info1. If the issue appears randomly, we might need to enable the debug using log4crc.txt file and also append the log file size and number of log files to be generated. In this slide, I have an example rsd.log file snippet, which consists of the incoming request. So what we see in this particular snip that whenever the incoming request has been received by RSCD agent, it will consist of the source IP address, which host is actually trying to connect. And it will also show what kind of mapping is getting done, like we see privileged map. Which user is getting mapped to the BladeLogic RSCD account? It's right in this scenario, it's administrator. So this is the common response or common log message we will see when an incoming request has been received. So in this scenario, the user was running agent info and it's getting the response. This log we will also see that any kind of command which we are executing, it will be getting logged over here. Like over here, an exec is getting logged in the response itself. We don't require a debug immediately to see what kind of commands are getting executed. So when we are troubleshooting the connectivity issue or agent connectivity issues specifically, so we need to check how from where the connection is coming, what kind of mapping it's holding, and what activity was getting performed on the target machine from this rc.log file. When we are troubleshooting a communication or connectivity issues specifically for Windows targets, it will be important to determine what type of user mapping is used. Is it UPM or automation principal? When the connection is established using UPM, it will log the impersonation as privileged mapped. And when automation principal is used, then it will log the impersonation as password logon in the logs. When we look at the initial communication, it will helpful to narrow down the issue which user is trying to perform the activity on target, and does it have a correct privilege or permissions to perform the action. In this demo, I would like to show how to enable or disable debug for RSCD agent. We will use both the approach to perform this action using agentctl as well as updating log4crc.txt file, and we'll see if we restart the agent after enabling or disabling the debug, what's the status of the logging statement. I would like to show how to enable or disable the debugging for RSCD agent, or how to change the logging level. First, we will look into agent-ctl command. So when the RSCD agent gets installed and started, it will by default log all the messages with logging level of info1. So we will see messages with info or info1 over here along with errors and warning messages. In order to enable the debug or get more detailed information for the RSCD agent activities, we can use the command agentctl. It's present in the same directory of RSCD home. So we can use with a switch. Once you run this command, it will show a message on a successful execution that it's sent the log level changes. And if you open rcd.log file, we will see the changes also being reflected over here. That logging level is now moved to debug from info1. Now, this is not a permanent change. If I go ahead and restart the agent, the logging level change which we did from agentctl will revert back to info1. If I go ahead and restart the agent right now and go back and look for the latest RCD file, it will start writing the activities as info or info1. Now, as I mentioned earlier, to make these changes or logging level changes permanent, we need to modify or append the existing log4crc.txt file, which is present in C Windows RSC folder. If you open this file, we'll see where exactly we need to append from info1 to debug. This is the line which talks about logging rscd.log. So this info1 to debug, save the file. As mentioned earlier, this change will not reflect immediately when this is done through log4crc file. It will require RSCD agent restart. So right now, there's no new activities written. Now, if I go ahead and restart the agent, the new log file which will be generated, it will start the logging statements with the debug from the very beginning. So if I look at the latest RSCD log, it will show all the activities along with info. It has debug statements as well. The limitation for log4crc.txt will be it needs to be done manually, but this file gives additional changes or additional parameters which we can control the logging. So right now, for example, how big that file can grow. Like if you're reproducing an issue which occurs like once in a week or once every 2 weeks or something like that. So we can increase the log file size and change the number of rollover files. It by default is set to 10 and it's set to 10 MB over here. So we can modify it to 20, make it to 50. So it will grow more. The log will start logging more activities and it will retain that any error messages which we might want it to review once the error occurred. This agentctl command can be remotely executed as well, as I mentioned earlier. For this, over here, I'm connected to my Blade Logic automation console. Here's the target, which was I was showing earlier for the debug statements. If I wanted to enable a debug from the console itself, I can run a command against this server. We can run the same command, but with the nexec. Once we run the command, if the correct mapping is done, it will show us the proper response. The log level change request sent successfully. On the target machine, if I open the latest RSCD log file, it will show that info has been changed to debug. Now this can be done only with agentctl command. Log4crc file can be modified from the console, but it will not have, we will not be able to restart the agent. Otherwise, we'll lose the connectivity again. So, as I mentioned earlier, it depends on the use case how exactly we wanted to enable or disable the logging. This slide shows the workflow how RSCD agent communication works. This workflow is very helpful to understand how the end-to-end communication for RSCD agent works, and also helps to narrow it down the point of failures for troubleshooting. We can refer this workflow to understand till what point the communication occurred and what are possible points to check to fix the connectivity or communication issues. This detailed workflow is a part of TSSA RSCD Troubleshooting Guide. We have a link for Troubleshooting Guide in the reference section. Now, I would like to talk about some very common errors we encountered for RSCD agent communication. The error could be visible in user interface of console or in job run log or NSH command response. Some jobs or activity is failing for certain targets with the error message login not allowed or no authorization to access host. These two errors mainly caused due to incorrect mapping done in ACL, or could be a typo when updating the content in ACL files manually. This also occurs when mapping is done to a non-existing user or the user is in disabled state. This error also can be seen if we are using domain user in automation principle and the password for the user is expired. After resetting the password, it's not been updated in TSSA automation principle. There are some scenarios where the Windows target BladeLogic RSCD user gets into disabled or locked state, which will also throw a same error message. Best place to start troubleshooting here is to review the error we are getting or logged when we are running the use case. Then we can check the RSCD log, which will have detailed information around the error we have seen. It can throw some specific keywords like host not grant access or fail to map user to a local user. This is very helpful in troubleshooting. Here are some references KA which can be referred to troubleshoot the issue. When we encounter an issue where jobs are failing with login not allowed or no authorization to access host, the first thing we need to see how many targets are affected by this. What was the recent change done to those targets? So for example, I have one target where I've recently found the jobs are failing with login not allowed. So to troubleshoot it further, first of all, I will run an agent info command against this target to see what is the response I am getting. So when I run the agent info from console, I'm getting can't access host and login not allowed for user. If I do the same from the command prompt or NSH prompt, it will reflect the same message. Now, this gives us a clue that how we need to proceed further. We need to check on the target what is the ACL or permission set over there. On the target machine, first thing I need to check what is the rscd.log is logging. It's logging the statements with the debug mode, which I have enabled earlier, but the error message will be present always. So here the error message we see is indicating that it's not able to map the user. If I look closely the user account, I see a typing mistake. So as I mentioned earlier, I have recently updated the exports file to modify a user inside the target machine. So I will just modify that user and correct the typing mistake. No need to restart agent for this change, and we will run the agent info command again from the console. We'll go back again and run agent information. And now we see it getting me a correct response, and if we run a job against this target, it will be successful as the mapping is correct. The other error message which we encounter while running a job or executing a command from NSH prompt or performing any task from the console against specific targets, it's no authorization to access host. When we encounter this issue, first of all, we need to check what exactly the user mapping is done on that particular target. So first step will be running agent info. So I'm currently logged in as BL admin and role is BL admins. When I'm running agent info, I am getting a correct mapping with administrator user on the target machine. The second thing, we need to check which role executed the failing job or performing the task. So in this scenario, the role which failed to perform the activity was Windows admins. So when I switch to Windows admin roles, now I am connected to console using BL admin as a user and Windows admin's role. When I am running the agent info against this target, when I'm using BL admin as a user and Windows admins as a role, I'm getting no authorization to access host. When we are getting this particular error message, we need to check on the target RSCD.log what exact message it's writing, and we need to verify the ACLs as well. On the target machine, when I open the RSCD log, I see Windows admin roles and BL admin user. When it's trying to run agent info, it's throwing a message, failed to map user to local user. I will check the ACLs first, the exports file. It's currently set. Any incoming request should be mapped to administrator. So this is correct. We'll go to the users.local file. If any manually updated ACLs over here. So this file is empty. So the next thing we need to check is users file. In the users file, I can see the BL admin's role and BL admin user are present, but there's no entry for Windows admin roles. So this particular mapping is missing on this target. We need to update this file by running ACL push job, because no user entry will not allow any other user or role to access this machine or perform any activity apart from the ones specified in users file, which is get populated from ACL push job. On the console, when I'm connected again with BL admin user and BL admin's role, I'll go ahead and do a ACL push on this particular target. It will show what entries are gonna get updated when I'm performing this action. So I see the Windows admin's role is also added over here. When I do a push from the console and switch the role to Windows admin, go to the target and run agent info command. This will show the correct mapping is done for this Windows admin's role as well. On the target machine, when I go and open users file to see if new changes are reflected, it will be present with the updated entry. So this will make sure that whenever a BLadmin user trying to run a job or perform any activity from the application server or NSH prompt, it will get executed on the target with Windows admin roles. So to address the issue where jobs are failing with no authorization to access host, we need to make sure that correct ACLs are pushed against the target. If there is a discrepancy, we need to make sure that our back admin and the role has correct user mapping done. So once we do ACL push, the correct users file will get updated and we will no longer encounter this particular error message. To troubleshoot the common RSCD agent connectivity issues which we encounter during a failed job run log or while executing NSH command or performing any activity against the target machine from TSSA console. The error messages could be connection refused, connection timed out, no route to host, or remote host is unknown. These messages indicate there is some network connectivity issue between the source, which could be application server, console server, or NSH client, while it's trying to communicate with the target RSCD agent. First and foremost, we need to check what is the agent status on the target machine. Is it up or not? If it's up and running, then we need to check is it listening on the default port, which is 4750 or not. Are we able to do telnet from the source machine to target on a default port? Is it accepting that connection? Along with that, we need to check any new hops or devices got added between the source and destination, which could also trigger this kind of error messages as it's not able to communicate or establish the successful connection with the target RSCD agent. In the solution section, you can see there are certain keys created specifically targeting to a specific error message. They are very helpful to isolate and identify the cause of the issue. When a job or activity fails with the error message stating connection refused, connection timed out, or no route to host, it usually indicates there is some network layer communication issue. For example, one of the target today failed to execute a job and throwing an error message connection refused. So if I try to do an agent info against this target, see what exactly the response I'm getting right now. It states connection refused. Now, first thing I need to check on the target machine whether RSCD agent is listening or not, because the connection refused indicates the destination port or destination server is not listening on specified port. So if the RSCD agent is down or not running, it will not be listening on 4750 to respond to the incoming messages. On the target server, I am checking the service state. It's currently stopped. So it's indicating the expected response, connection refused, as it's not listening on that specified port. I'll just go ahead and start the service. Now, I will just check again on the console. What is the response on agent info when we run it after starting the agent? Now I'm back to the console and I'm running agent information and I'm getting connection refused again. Now, what could be the error message if the agent is up and running? We need to check the logs, because when the agent is down, it will not be logging any activities. So now we need to check again on the agent side what exactly RSCD log tells us on this particular message. On the target machine, I will just open the RSCD agent log. Now here, It's giving an error message about BladeLogic RSCD agent. The logon password account restriction are preventing this user from signing in. It's indicating and showing some option what exactly could be the issue. So to start with, I need to check what is the impersonation done on this particular machine. So I will check the user account used in the mapping, which is administrator, and it does exist. So this is good. And I will see the users.local file. It is empty, which is also still using administrator as a map user. And I'll see users file. This is also empty right now. So the mapping is done from the exports file, and which is correct. Now I will go to the system management and see what is the status of the users mapped. When I open computer management, I will go to the local user and groups, as I'm using UPM right now, and check the status of users. So administrator looks good. BladeLogic RSCD is showing as down or disabled. It could be possibly due to some policy or restriction, this account got disabled. Once I enable this account and go back to console, on the console, if I have started the agent, I have enabled the BladeLogic RSCD account. Now I will run agent info. Now, as the agent was listening on correctly on the port and BladeLogic RSCD account is enabled, we are getting the correct mapping. No longer connection refused message. Another scenario will be when we are getting connection refused while executing a job or running agent information. Like for example, on this machine, we have checked the agent services are running and the BladeLogic RSCD agent is enabled. But the recent changes, I am not able to run agent info successfully or a job. So I'm getting connection refused. I'll just go ahead and check the same settings again. On the target, firstly, I will look for the services. It is running. I'll go to users account and everything is showing running as expected. I'll also check the RSCD log file. There's no specific error message is getting logged right now. As a connection refuse is basically telling us about the network connectivity issue with against the target machine, right? So I will check what is the status of the port, whether RSCD agent is listening on default port or not. I will run this netstat command on the target and it's returning empty. The first thing I need to check on the ACL file here will be secure file. Now I can see the default port has been modified to a custom port over here. And my console machine is not aware about that particular machine is running with custom port. I will go back to my console machine and I will check the secure file. I can see there's no specific entry for any user, any target here. I should not be modifying the secure file manually. There's a lot of chances of error messages. Instead of that, I will use secadmin command. In this secadmin command, I will specify the target which is using a custom port. And once I execute this command, it will update the secure file. Now I can see specific entry for this particular target with a custom port. Now, if I go to the console and run agent info command against this target, we are getting an expected response. Because right now, my console machine is able to communicate with the target machine using the secure file on a custom port. Another set of common error messages we see or encounter while running a jobs is error in TLS protocol or encryption configuration error. These messages or errors get logged when there is some issue with the configuration file on the RSCD agent, or there is some network connectivity issue between the source and the destination server. Here source will be the application server and destination will be the target RSCD agent. So when we are going to troubleshoot this issue, we need to start from checking the secure file, agent ACL, rest of the ACL files, and review the rcd.log file to see what messages are getting logged when this particular error is logged on the console or job run log. If the issue is not with the configuration file, we need to check from the network point of view. We need to do a packet capture between the application server and RSCD agent, which is failing, and see if there is a network packet drop. We can do a continuous ping, or we can do repeatedly running agent info from NSH prompt to see the network agent or network is reliable and it's responding every time with correctly, or involve the network team to see if there is any intermittent connectivity issue or any new hop in the network assigned between app server and the target agent, which is causing this particular issue or not processing the connection stream. We have a K written around this particular issue, which consists the error messages and the possible troubleshooting steps to resolve this issue. When we are encountering an error message while executing a job or performing any task from NSH prompt or console stating error in TLS protocol or encryption configuration error, this particular messages or error response indicates there is a network communication between the source, which could be application server, NSH prompt, or console, is not able to connect to the target RSCD agent successfully. There is some network issue. So primarily, we need to, when we are troubleshooting this particular error message, we need to consider both the things, the target RSCD agent, as well as the network changes recently done, which could contribute or could cause this particular error message to appear. So for example, one of the target is failing to execute a job with stating error in TLS protocol. So to start with, I will run a basic agent info command to see what is the response I'm getting. The agent info is also failing with the same error in TLS protocol. One more thing, apart from agent info, when we are getting error in TLS protocol or encryption configuration error, any network related issue, so we can also check or run verify against the targets. Verify basically checks the connectivity between source and the target RSCD agent, and actually it's throwing the same error message. It's one more option or one more way to check the connectivity between source and the target machine. To troubleshoot this issue, first of all, I need to check what is getting logged on the rcd.log on the target machine. Then I need to check what is the status of the configuration files on the source machine, on the target RSCD agent. So on the target machine, I will open the rcd.log, and the error message keep on repeating is stating SSL protocol mismatch error. I need to check the secure file, as all the incoming network requests are handled by secure file first, and then rest of the configuration or ACL files get into the picture. So when I open the secure file, so basically this will handle all the network related communication. When any incoming request comes in, this file gets read first from the network point of view. So in the first glance, I don't see any any issues with this particular file. Just to verify it, I would go to one of the working targets and check the content of secure file to match that the working and non-working are both same or not. So I see one noticeable difference on the line 1 itself, that this particular line states encryption equals to TLS, and on my target machine, which is failing, it's holding one more additional number in it. This file was tried to modify it manually, and this number left in the end of the file. This line on the target, specifically target machines, which starts with RSCD, this line or this particular configuration is read when any incoming request is being received on the target machine. So this is what it's using for all the network communication, and as it has some manual error inside the file which could cause this particular error message. So we will correct this file, save it, and go back to console. And on the console, once we have modified this file, we will run agent info command against this target. Now, as the secure file on the target machine is placed correctly, so the network communication is working fine on this target. We'll just run verify also, and if there are no error messages on verify, so that means this is also going through the target. For this issue that we just fixed, it was specifically caused due to the secure file misconfiguration. However, apart from secure files, there are some scenarios where a network device, a newly introduced network device, which is preventing a communication between source and destination, RSCD agent, and throwing this error message. So when we are encountering this particular TLS error in TLS protocol or encryption configuration error, apart from looking at the RSCD log files or RSCD configuration, we need to also check any recent changes on the network, or any new hops been added, any new firewall policies, or any devices from the network which recently introduced and causing this communication error message. When we have checked the secure file or configuration file on the target RSCD agent, and there's no recent network change which immediately caught attention, which could cause this issue or error message, we need to perform a packet capture from the source, which could be application server NSH prompt or console, and and any hop in between and the targets. So we need to see from the packet capture what is the end-to-end communication flow and where exactly the communication is breaking. That packet capture will give us some additional details in order to troubleshoot and fix the issue. In the references, we have some additional knowledge articles which we can refer when we encounter any agent connectivity issues. Apart from it, we have troubleshooting guide, which talks about in detail about the end-to-end communication workflow, also talks about the common error messages and some references how to troubleshoot and fix that issue. I hope you find this webinar helpful. To summarize, we spoke about RSCD agent and communication flow in TSSA architecture. We spoke about how impersonation works in Unix or Windows target agents. We also spoke about how to enable debug and review the RSCD.log file and how we can control the logging for RSCD log file for further troubleshooting. We have also reviewed some most common errors we encounter with RSCD agent communications, and we also saw how to troubleshoot those common error messages. This concludes my presentation, and now I will hand it over to Greg.
Thank you. And now I'll take us through the self-help in contacting BMC. The YouTube channel where this webinar will be posted is available at this link. It contains past webinars as well as a rich set of how-to videos. The Connect with TrueSight webinar schedule that contains future webinars as well as our past webinars is available at this communities link. Also, the Hot Off the Press newsletter contains trending information. And to contact technical support via web, phone, email, as well as these social channels are available through these links. That will conclude our session today. Thank you for attending.